All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Brittany Quick Warner. I'm the president and CEO of Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce. And I'm also the co-chair for the Reign Eugene board. And I'm excited to be here today as a guest questioner for the Founders Fireside Chat we have here. Our executive director of Reign Eugene, Joe. Joe, why don't you tell us something about yourself?
Tell me something about myself.
What should we know about you?
That people don't already know. I spent some of my formative years when I was a small child living in North Dakota,
Okay.
7 miles from the Canadian border, in the town of Cavalier.
I did not know that about you, so there you
That's
go.
a factoid that no one knows about.
Good. All right. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about Reign Eugene, give you guys some information about what is Reign Eugene, what is it that they do, how do they serve our community. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the events that they have coming up and the activities that they've been working on, and then also dive a little bit into the entrepreneurial ecosystem and what does innovation look like in our community, and what does the future of innovation in our community look like, and chat with Joe on all of those topics, which he loves to talk about.
Yes, and hopefully I'll not just go on forever about them.
I'll cut you off. That's my job.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just get started. 3 to 5 words. What's Reign Eugene?
Economic development through entrepreneurship.
Oh, you
How's
were
that
thinking
one?
about that.
I was thinking about it. So it's like, how do you get down to 3 words?
Yeah.
So I used big words.
Yeah.
But I think the key part of that is we're not just delivering entrepreneurship training. We're trying to do economic development through entrepreneurship, which means we're trying to use entrepreneurship to actually make a positive impact in our community. Create jobs, create companies here, create opportunities for people here.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Really, that's the focus. And I think a lot of people don't see that part of it, but internally on the board side and everything we do on a day-to-day basis is really focused on, can we make this a stronger community? Not just can we make good companies, but can we make good companies here that make Eugene a better place to be?
Yeah. So we work a lot sort of in 3 different spheres, right? There's like recruiting companies here. Mm-hmm. There's supporting and helping grow the companies that currently exist. And then there's this idea of being a good place for companies to start and to grow
your own.
And to stay.
Grow your own.
So talk a little bit about what is it that you guys do to make this place good for businesses to start here?
Well, a lot of it is the complex part of it.
Yeah.
So this is the whole ecosystem kind of concept.
Yeah.
So starting a company here, someone starts a company, we can provide them training. We offer a lot of mentorship from people that have started companies before. Sort of all the normal things that people don't know they bump into. So we have a lot of people that just usher them through the process and help them not make that many mistakes. The other part of it is that you can't grow a company with just mentorship alone. So you need a workforce. Right. Oftentimes you need infrastructure, and then you need money. So we call this like human capital, social capital, and regular
physical capital. Yeah.
So this is things like fiber. So people need fiber, and then like the biolab space. So biotech companies need biolab space. So the actual infrastructure needs to take place. Food and beverage companies need shipping. They need facilities that they can cook in. So we actually need those things to exist for the companies to grow.
Right.
And then we need money. Oftentimes startup companies don't have revenue yet. So capital infusion is sort of a proxy for future revenue.
Right.
It's the money they use to get started. So we need that so they can get started. And then there's the workforce. They need people. So once these companies start growing, they need good people to grow. So we're heavily involved in all of those things to making sure those resources exist. And it's there's this challenge in that you can't have too much of one and not enough of another. They all have to be leveled up at the same time. So it's really tricky because you have to build up a base in each one, and then you slowly have to add as the companies grow. And they're different. We need coders for tech companies. We need food and beverage people for food and beverage companies, and biotech people for biotech companies.
Right.
So we're constantly in all the different spheres trying to pull people in. And there's some companies that have huge crossovers. Todd Edmonds' new company it's sort of
or tech food and beverage
company.
Yeah.
It's a crossover, and those are some of the most interesting to me because they're building some of the things that are very, very unique about Eugene, unique resources that we have here that people can't do them anywhere else,
right?
Because they just don't have the access to what we actually have here.
Yeah. So I mean, for food and beverage industries, a lot of that infrastructure is the actual agricultural infrastructure. I mean, we have this natural resource that a lot of places don't.
Hazelnuts,
so being able to capitalize on it. Yeah.
Hazelnuts, wine.
Yeah.
And then just
Right. There's that's a huge element of what drives our entrepreneurial ecosystem is what are the natural resources we have that naturally sort of cause folks to innovate and to create businesses because of it.
Yeah, and some of it's just it's called a second city problem.
Yeah.
We're solving problems that happen in second cities. We're not solving New York problems. We're not solving San Francisco problems. We're solving Eugene-sized problems.
Yeah.
And I think that's not unique to us, but all of the second cities, all the up-and-coming cities that are growing these innovation ecosystems are solving problems that are specific to their city.
Yeah.
And I think they're a lot more transportable because there's one New York, there's one San Francisco. There's hundreds of cities across the United States that have problems like ours. And these are problems when it comes to transportation, parking, access to health, that we can actually solve potentially.
Interesting. So talk to me a little bit about sort of the history of our entrepreneurial ecosystem.
History of
where have you seen evolution?
Well, evolution, I mean, to me, I got involved in it. So my backstory is I was part of Startup Here, a video game company. Mine was called Brave Tree. I sold it to Garage Games. Garage Games sold to IAC. And in 2009, I left to pursue other interests. I took 2 years off to try to midlife retirement. And in 2011, I wanted to get back into doing a startup, but I didn't know where to go. So I started going first to Smart Ups, which was, the chamber was putting on these events. And they were these great pub talks you go to, awesome events. You got sort of a taste of the ecosystem. Yeah. But they were sporadic.
Right. And it was sort of a seedling of what we wanted to grow into something a lot more.
It was a point in time, so you'd go there and I'm like, great, but where's the community? So I'd go to these events and I would end up meeting with someone, meeting them for coffee. And I'd talk to them, and then they would introduce me to someone else, and that person would introduce me to someone else, and that person would introduce me to the first person I met. So these small circles of people who had done startups together, but there was no greater community. Yeah. Okay. And so I was just fishing around, meeting with everyone. So I spent most of 2011 having coffee every day with like hundreds of people. So I met with a ton of people. And a chance meeting happened. I met with someone in town, a friend of mine who owns a software company, introduced me to an investor of his who was from Boston. And was talking about what I do to grow an ecosystem. It's like, oh, you should meet this guy I know in Boulder. So he introduced me to a guy named Brad Feld, who's a venture capitalist at the Founder Group in Boulder. And he put me in touch with him. And I was communicating with Brad. And I was like, so startup communities, here, good things are going on in Boulder. How'd you go about doing this? And he's like, I wrote a book. It's called Startup Communities, Read My Book. So I read his book. And then I actually went to visit Boulder. Went to the Techstars final demo day and then met a whole bunch of people in Boulder and got a sense of the scene. And like it was actually the embodiment of what they were talking about in the book. And there was this one key concept that came out, which is this like give before you get concept, which is everyone is putting energy into the system for the betterment of the community. So everyone was very free in giving me information. And everyone I talked to is like, well, just connect. Don't think about capital. Don't just connect. Yeah. So came back here, and I just a few of us, it was myself, Mapadej, Shula Jaran, Jason Boone, started really pushing this hard with this Jumpstart event at the Broadway Commerce Center, and then we opened up Fertilab, and mostly it was just we started doing coffee meetups every 2 weeks, and we started at the Barnlight. And at first it was 8 people, and it was 12 people, and it was 40 people, and one time it was like 54 people. Wow. At like 9 a.m. at the Barnlight, and Thomas was like, So we decided to get a space, and we opened up Fertilab over on Lincoln back in the day, and it was just so we could actually have a place to gather, and it was an experiment. It's like, would people show up? And they came out of the woodwork. So we found that what I was looking for was just a community to kind of explore. And there were a ton of people in the community that were looking for the exact same thing. So out of that, just a small community started to happen. Yeah. And we just started feeding into the community. We started asking them, what do you want? And the normal things, access to capital, more information, more connectivity. So we just actually started providing all of that, and it just started to grow. I mean, it sort of took on a life of its own. Yeah. And in 2014, the legislature funded RAIN. By that point, I was mentoring at an accelerator in Portland called PI, the Portland Incubator Experiment, and created a network in Portland. And they knew I had been studying this stuff for like 3 or 4 years, and were like, hey, do you want to set up an accelerator program? So that's when I actually founded the first Eugene Accelerator in 2014. It was at the chamber. Yeah. Spun it up really quick, and the idea was the same: just help companies grow, help them accelerate, and add value to the community.
So let's talk a little bit about the accelerator. So for someone who has never done a startup company, they've been around this but not necessarily in it. What is an accelerator? What does it do? How do you get the companies through? What comes out of it?
Whoa, that's a
lot.
That's a lot. So an accelerator, it's not a place; it's a program. Right. And it's less of a class than it is sort of a program. We bring people through, and there's a curriculum where we teach them a lot of things that they might not know about how to technically do a startup. The other thing we do is surround them with mentors. The idea is they bounce their ideas off of the mentors and sort of get feedback from people who've done it before. the mentors come from all different businesses, all different stages of businesses. So they
Yeah.
get this ton of feedback that's different. And a lot of it's, someone's done a business, they did the business they did. So they have one idea of how to be successful.
Right.
So when someone meets with like 20 mentors, they get 20 possible scenarios how to be successful.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is work with them to have them sort all that information that's coming at them and parse it
Yeah.
to come up with a plan to move forward. And sometimes the plans are not good plans. They come up with a really, really good idea, and they go out and into the marketplace, and they discover like this idea is just not going to work.
Yeah.
And so, as an accelerator, we don't consider people moving fast toward failure as a failure.
Right.
So if a person comes in and does a startup and sits in their garage and builds something that ultimately is not going to work, it's 3 years of lost productivity where they're like consuming all their personal resources to build something that's not going to work. Whereas if they discover quickly this isn't going to work, they can move on to the next thing, maybe join another company,
Pivot.
or maybe go back and get another job.
Yeah.
So at least they're adding value to the community and not just squirreled away. But it's really this concept that they come to the accelerator and we surround them with a bunch of people and a bunch of connectivity. Because I have a lot of connections, but all the other mentors have a lot of connections too. So it's not just like classroom learning. People come in and they're like, oh, you should meet this guy I know that did something similar to what you're doing, and just freely connect everybody.
What's that mentor network like? How do those people, how do they get connected? I mean, is it robust? Do we have a good, strong mentorship network?
75 mentors as part of the Rain Eugene network, which is pretty impressive. And a lot of this were people that I met in that first year that I was going around.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are people that are they're business people and very, very focused business people, and they're community minded, but they don't know how in a lot of ways, which is they're not going to show up at city council meetings and they're not going to run for office.
Right.
They know how to do business.
Yeah.
And they want to give back, but oftentimes they're like, I don't know how to do anything.
Yeah.
Well, they're like, I know how to build businesses. How do I do that to help our community?
Yeah,
and it's like, well, can you help me grow these small businesses? And they're like, I can do that. So part of this was just giving them an avenue to give back in a way that was very, very easy for them to give back in a way they know how and very, very well.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this is like, well, I want to help the community, but me showing up at an event and like handing out name tags is
doesn't feel like it's using all of their talents.
Yeah. So this allows them to use all their talents directly with the companies and add value and create friendships. Because the idea is, a strong network, a strong community where people know each other. That's the great value we have here. Is that we have a very strong, very connected community. So if you ask one person to find a resource, it's like one step away.
Right. It's not very far removed.
And that's what we keep hearing is it's like, man, this is amazing. I come here and I ask, hey, I'm looking for human resources person. It's like, oh, talk to that person.
Yeah.
Like within a day or hours even, they can get the answer to their question.
So that network, I feel, and those connections is a strength of our ecosystem. What else? What are the other strengths that we have?
Well, that's the main one.
Yeah.
The strength of our ecosystem is the density of the connections and how free everyone gives of themselves.
Yeah.
That's the main one. And the give before you get.
Yeah.
Everyone here is really giving. So part of this, the culture that we've been trying to create is this give before you get culture, which is you give without expectation of return. It's not transactional.
Yeah.
Which is the end result is strong companies in our community, which benefits everybody, and everyone has sort of adopted that culture and ethic, and that's it's very, very strong here, and people who have come here have noticed it.
Yeah.
So it's like that culture of just freely giving.
Yeah.
Is noticeable.
So some of the other ingredients you mentioned. So the capital. What do we like here?
Oh man, it's interesting. So this is the one where like you go to most places and everybody says, oh, there's no capital, there's no capital. It's actually strange here because there's actually a massive amount of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually a fairly wealthy community that's hidden away.
Yeah.
So we have our own unique challenges. Our unique strength is that there's lots of capital here. The challenge is that it's hard to get.
Yeah.
And access to capital is
right. So capital's there, but the access might be the opportunity.
Access is the challenge, and some of it's structural. We have a very strong software community here. We are actually located between San Francisco and Seattle. It's actually we strangely have more software here than we probably should, given the size of our community. But it's very, very robust. Our games community is really, really strong.
Huge,
and funding for software companies is actually pretty easy here in Oregon. I think the unique challenges we have right now are financing for food companies because we have a massive amount of food startups.
Right.
And that's evolving rather rapidly as we have to figure out how to fund consumer products and food companies because capital for those is a little bit different.
Right, and it's a different type of investment than if you're investing in a software company.
Because usually they're
Yeah.
bankable. They don't need equity investment. What they actually need is just debt finance.
Yep.
The lag time from when you buy the products,
Right.
do the value-added process, to you sell it, and you get your money.
Well, and the infrastructure they need is far more
It's far more expensive.
Expensive and intense than a software company.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So these are some of the unique opportunities
Mhm.
and challenges, because it's growing more rapidly than sort of the banks can handle it.
Yeah.
Because they're just doing what they do,
Mhm.
and what we actually need is a lot more of it, a lot more quickly.
Mhm.
So unique environment.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So one of the challenges, opportunities, is kind of capital, access to capital, specifically in some of those different types of industry investments outside
Yes.
of software. What else? What are some of the other challenges that
Well, so
are opportunities?
they're
for
both,
us?
and it's unique, and it might be unique to Eugene Accelerator. So we're not a software-specific accelerator.
We're not.
We're not.
Not. Yeah.
Yeah, we're food and beverage, CPG, services, anything that we actually think can move the needle, we
Yeah.
accept. So we have this unique community, and this is like combined with the challenges of access to capital.
Mhm.
You don't have the splintering that we have. So we don't just have a food and beverage group and a CPG group and a software group. There's some splintering, some tribes, you call them, but they're a lot more integrated than you'd expect. So in the accelerator, we have biotech companies working with software companies, working with food companies, and they're all sort of sharing ideas and sharing contacts and resources. So there's this overlap that is far more pronounced than, say, more well-developed ecosystems that are robust enough that you can actually have a very strong
niche
food cluster that's almost like kind of sectored itself off and just focused on food. We have a lot more overlap. Now, it makes it more difficult for us, but I think it makes it more robust.
Right.
Because
a lot of those companies share very similar challenges, very similar sort of, things that they have to go through to make a successful company.
Yes.
They splinter off once they get into their specific industry, specifics, but that makes sense.
But it's unique here. It's unique having the software people and the food people like shoulder to shoulder, helping each other and knowing each other and showing up at the startup events. So it's sort of like the challenges lead to unique solutions, which I actually think make us much stronger.
Yeah. So. Interesting. Okay. So what about the next 3 to 5 years?
We'll see. Things are taking off. I mean, this is the challenging part.
Yeah.
A lot of people moving here, a lot of growth. Sometimes it feels like we're struggling to keep up. I mean, it's just things in Eugene are taking off, and with the developments going to be happening on the river, with the worlds, the night campus, the worlds, just things are happening so rapidly that we have a lot of challenges. Yeah. And it's sort of like, I would say they're good problems to have.
Right.
The next couple of years are going to see explosive growth in Eugene that we have to manage properly. So I think that's, I always look at it as a huge opportunity. It's like we have this opportunity to look at some of the issues, housing, downtown safety, and actually do it right. Yeah. And this is where I get really, really excited about sort of the concept of innovation, is that we are actually at a sort of a tipping point as a society in terms of how we do transportation, how we do education.
Right.
We have digital online delivery of everything. We have self-driving cars coming down the pipes. We have this opportunity to reimagine our community right now, when technology is enabling us to imagine things that couldn't have been imagined even 5 years ago. Yeah. And come up with solutions that couldn't have been imagined. And for some of the towns that sort of had the challenges of gentrification and didn't solve them, we have this opportunity to solve those challenges. So I'm super excited because I want to see more innovation, not just in software or in food, making big companies and selling them, but some innovation in terms of what are we doing as a community. See,
I totally agree. I feel like we have this really cool opportunity to sort of embrace innovation across our entire community.
Totally.
It's not just it's not just in specific industries, and it's not just innovation in business development. It's innovation in social service,
or housing.
How we provide social services, how we answer to the housing crisis. Yep. Yeah, how we create technology or transportation, and how
we make an inclusive community. Because some of this, like with the housing issue, there's this standard pattern. You see gentrification happen because people move into an area because of the way housing is structured, and it's like, whoa, that's not why I moved to Eugene.
How do we do it differently?
How do we do it differently, and how do we do it creatively? And that means more ideas to the table. And usually those ideas is like, if you have the same people thinking about the same problems the same way, you're going to get the same solutions. Yep. But if we get lots of different people from lots of different places coming in and adding their voice to the conversation, we may come up with some really novel solutions. And again, we're not going to solve San Francisco's problems. We're not going to solve Portland's problems, but we might solve the 100, 200,000
communities
size.
like ours.
If we solve it here, it's a problem we might be able to solve across the United States, and that I think is really, really exciting and something worth embracing.
I think too, you and I have this unique opportunity to meet with business leaders, to meet with community leaders, and we see the innovative solutions that they're already creating. For me, I feel like there's this opportunity in this this really exciting chance for us to create a platform to tell those stories, right? To tell our story to the rest of the world about the stuff we're already doing that's super innovative, but that is sort of, it's kind of bucketed off and it's hidden.
It's hidden under rocks. And I get this, it's like the sector strategies work we did here, both in tech community, food and beverage. So it's like they go to national conferences, and apparently like Eugene is doing
we're on the map.
We're on the map. And it's like, what are they doing in Eugene sector strategies? You guys did it right. And then we go to a fiber conference, and everybody's implementing fiber projects all across the nation, and apparently most of them fail, and everyone looks at the amount of money that we spent versus other cities and like, you guys did it for like 1/10 the cost. Like, how did you
do it?
How did you do it? And it's like, really? We did something like, everybody's like, what you did usually doesn't work, and what you did usually takes 10 times the amount of money that it usually costs.
Right.
How did you solve that? And that's something we're doing stuff right here.
Yeah.
Because we are. Sometimes we don't realize it, and sometimes we don't.
We're busy doing it and not,
talking
I think
about
at this point, like my opinion is my role at the chamber, your role in this, is to tell those stories about how we've already made a lot of progress to energize folks to continue making that progress.
Yes, and part of this is there's a natural humility here.
Yeah.
Which is oh yeah, you did something that's amazing that no one else been able to pull off. Well, that seemed like the right way to do it, so we just did it. And it's like, well, apparently it's a groundbreaking, breathtaking. No one else has been able to pull it off.
Yeah.
We should be celebrating and telling that story.
Right. Celebrating for the sake of sharing information with other people so they can do things
and add to it.
Too. Yeah.
And this is like, why it's exciting with the US Ignite and the Mozilla stuff. It's like it's not just, those are platforms to share with other communities that are attempting to do the same things. And cross-pollinate. Because if we can get ideas from elsewhere in here that add to what we're doing, and we can export some of our ideas elsewhere, then we make a stronger community and a stronger nation, and affect people's lives outside of our own.
Right. So there's this kind of budding conversation about innovation districts, which is just sort of a technical term. For this concept that I think is already bubbling up in Eugene. So talk a little bit about
the innovation district. It goes back to the Brookings study, and it was based on looking at concentrations of innovative companies or innovative activities in certain areas of towns that led to massive amounts of economic development. And those massive amounts of economic development were actually really cool in that they actually provide prosperity for everyone that was in the district.
Right.
It wasn't just
in the district and outside.
Outside the district.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just like, oh, rich developers got rich and poor people got moved out. It was like everyone in the district prospered, and it affected everyone else. So it's like, wow. So you can actually come up with a economic development construct that positively affects all the citizens that happen to be affected by it.
Yeah.
So they did a whole bunch of studies on it and the effects of innovation districts. They're all positive. And then we had Scott Andes come out and talk about them, and you've been interested in a while, as have I.
Yeah.
And then earlier this year, Bob Parker at the U of O was like, hey, we have some extra money from EDA grant. We want to do a study to assess Eugene's readiness capacity for an innovation district.
Yeah.
Do you have, based on this, Brookings put out a scorecard, do you have what it takes to create an innovation district?
How do we stack up? Yeah.
Do you have the raw materials? What are your gaps?
Yeah.
So the idea was, we were going into this saying, well, we have some of the stuff we know. What's the gap analysis? What do we have to fill? And the report came back, and it's like,
we're doing pretty well.
Not much gap analysis. Yeah, we actually have the density and everything required to have an innovation district by the measures of what people have said.
Make it successful.
This could be successful. You have the density and all the base requirements to make it successful. And it was kind of stunning. It's like, oh, really? We're further along than we thought.
Yeah.
And what we're really lacking is
the storytelling platform.
The storytelling platform and the sort of embracing it, like, oh, let's just embrace it and actually make a thing out of it, and tell the story. Because part of this is, if we're only telling it to ourselves internally behind closed doors, it doesn't work.
Right.
If we're telling it to the rest of the nation, then the rest of the nation starts taking notice, and that sort of helps.
Yeah, elevates.
And it also, I think it helps because the concept of innovation district is a lot broader. You know, the idea of an innovation district is everyone gets to play.
Yep.
You know, when I think about it, it's um, art is innovative, media is innovative, writing is innovative. You know, when you actually have an innovation district, everything in it is pushing to the next level.
Right.
It's all additive, and people will come to the district, and like people like to be here because the food is pushing the limits, and the art is pushing the limits, and the theater is pushing the limits because it's an exciting place to be.
Yeah.
And then you don't feel like you have to go to a metro area to have culture because you have unique things happening here. And you've seen this even in towns like Austin or Athens, Georgia, where the music scene sort of busted out and it made an attraction. It's like innovation doesn't have to be just technology.
Right.
Innovation can happen on all fronts. And that's why I like the concept of an innovation district, because it includes everybody in the conversation and has everybody sort of pushing in the same direction, saying, wow, we can do something really, really cool here. And it focuses on this concept of prosperity for everyone in the community. It's a lot broader. And it sort of, it corrects that. I think it's a wrong conversation because prosperity in any one sector affects everybody. But really this refocuses the conversation not on the haves and the have-nots, but this is a concept where just about everybody that's taking place, everyone that buys in, prospers.
Well, and I think to me, innovation is a buzzword now, but really what it means is it's thinking outside the box and not being afraid to push the needle and to challenge the status quo and to really think about, hey, you know, we do have this prosperity gap. How do we close it? And how do we do it in a way that other people haven't tried before and be successful?
And be successful. And part of this is this, you know, the technical term of innovation is actually invention plus commercialization. And the broader definition of that is there's an idea, and then there's the taking the idea and getting that idea out there, getting it used in practice. So part of this is, can we take what we're doing here, all the things we're talking about in Eugene to make Eugene better, and actually not talk about them, but
actually do something.
Put them into action, and get people that are ready to act, or people have ideas of how to take some of the ideas or concepts and really move them to a point of action. I mean, that's the most exciting thing to me, and there needs to be more people. It's like there's so much going on that we actually need more people that have the energy and passion to push forward an idea. And in a lot of ways, this whole concept of innovation and innovation district, there's this startup mentality. This, you don't need to ask permission. We need a lot less people waiting in line saying, just tell me what to do. And it's like, what? I don't have time to tell you what to do. I can tell you, just
go do it.
Find a way to get involved that's positive and start pushing in that direction. If it works, keep doing it. If it doesn't,
fail fast and find the next thing.
Find the next thing and do something else, because not everything's, and part of it's accepting that not everything's going to work. There's, you know, innovation is a lot of getting over timidity. Some new things are new. You guess toward an uncertain future. You think it's going to be one way. You guess. You try to get there, and sometimes you're wrong. And if you're wrong, that's not a fail. You just you got it wrong. So you just say that didn't work. Let's move on without sort of this negative connotation with something not working. It's like, well, it just didn't work. So let's try something that does.
It's kind of shaking off that burden of having to get it exactly right, and so planning for years and years and years to then finally execute. It's kind of saying that's okay. Like let's make an educated decision. Let's come up with an idea, test our hypotheses in a small way, but then let's try it.
And there's part of this, you know, built-in sunsetting or built-in sort of reflection built into that process. It's like, did we get to where we wanted to be? And is where we are, what's changed? What has to be different? So this idea of this everything being reinvigorated all the time, because you have a group of people that suddenly they're just hungry for new, hungry for more, hungry for change, hungry for a little bit better. And I think you know, the philosophy of, you know, perfection is a direction. There isn't this good bad, you know. There isn't this dichotomy. It's like it's good now. Like Eugene's a pretty good place to live. It's awesome.
Great place to live.
It could be better. You know, so saying it could be better doesn't mean it's bad here. It just means let's push for perfection. And then when we get there, we push to the next level and push for perfection again. So it's that concept of we can always do better on all fronts. We can be more inclusive. We can have more prosperity for everyone. We can be more fun. You know, there's so many avenues we can push down, and we don't necessarily have to choose just one. We could push on all fronts at the same time.
Right.
It goes back to this concept of, that whole leveling up of the components of the ecosystem. It's like, well, they all have to kind of come together because they support each other. So there's necessity that we can't burst up here and leave this behind.
Yep.
We've got to.
Right. We kind of spiral us up instead of spiraling us down.
Yes. Yes.
With the negative ideas and concepts. Good.
Yep.
So we've kind of talked a little about how we're already kind of functioning in that way, that we really have a lot of the ingredients already in place. So what do you see as, what's the next step? We're kind of asking each other this question because I think you and I both are sort of just thinking about, okay, how do we move on to the next phase?
Lots of next steps. Some of it's just, formalizing some campaigns. Some of it's very technical, which is like identify the stakeholders we have to reach. And there's stakeholders internally in the town to sort of get them to know what's going on and get them bought into the concept. And there's channels outside to let the rest of the world know, hey, there's cool stuff happening here. Look at us. And then there is engaging everyone in the community in the ways they want to be engaged. And that's really challenging because we've both been in a lot of meetings where like saying, hey, if you want to be engaged, show up. 200 people show up. And then suddenly you're dealing with 200 conversations. It's actually very, very hard to manage it. So I think one of the governance challenges we have is how can we get everyone to get plugged in, get included, contribute to it in a way that's coherent and manageable, so they don't feel like they're spinning their wheels and they don't feel like they're left in the dark. That's actually this, it's a hard challenge because you have so many people that want to put energy in.
Right.
So we have to find
where's the right place.
Where's the right place to do it? So it's we've both been looking around like who's doing this right, talking to people of like mistakes they've made, because this is a process where people have made mistakes and we can learn from those. So it's sort of the startup philosophy. Talk to people who've done it before, get some mentoring. So that's, but it is big. When you actually say, hey, we want to get everyone involved in moving this community to become an innovative community. What if everyone shows up, all 165,000 of them on one day? It becomes an unmanageable conversation, and we don't want it to lead to frustration. We want it to lead to action. So,
one of my goals with it is really just trying to figure out how do we personalize this for people so they can sort of they can do with it what they want.
They can own it.
Right. That they get to own a piece of this. And really, I think that is what leads me towards this idea of this this community branding conversation of like what are our values, what is our brand that we want to share, and it's not just a tool in my mind to recruit other people here, right? I think that maybe that's an outcome, but for me it's how do we make the folks who are here feel supported, get excited about what's going on, feel included in the process,
feel included,
and proud.
That's
proud
the thing.
Of our community.
Proud of it.
Yeah.
And the inclusive part is just like, how do you actually say, yeah, you're part of this.
Yeah.
You live in this community. You are already part of this.
Yeah.
Now you just have to decide how your energy is going into this to move it in whatever way you want it to. Want to move it.
Absolutely. Who's not at the table that we should do a better job bringing?
Who's not at the table?
Yeah. I think about this question a lot because I think this idea of inclusivity is, it can't just be a buzzword. It has to be real.
I think we're doing a good job. I think there's some perceptions in the community that it is sort of like a tech thing, which is it's unfortunate. I think we are reaching out to the arts community. I think the music community here, we could do a better job of reaching out to them. I think the food community in terms of all the restaurants here, the tourism community. So I think there's a lot of sub communities in there of people that are just doing their own thing that they're not really aware of it. And all of those sub communities are ultra important, particularly on the cultural side. So if they can actually be doing more on that, if we could be doing a better job there. The challenge there is those communities aren't communities that are normally involved in economic development.
Right.
So our big stumbling block is the way we're used to doing it is like, oh, we're economic development agencies. We'll talk to their economic development liaison, of which there is none. And so we're challenged because this is where I recognize our own sort of falling into our own habits. It's like, I'll just talk to I'm going to have to talk to 20 people.
I got to find somebody,
Because there's not an organized point person, which I'm used to talking to. And it's like you catch yourself going.
We're in our own little bubble. We got to bust out of it.
You got to bust out of it. So that's, so we've got to do a better job of that.
Yeah, I think that really bringing in the nonprofit social service industry to really figure out how are we solving these community problems together, right? Like I'm so passionate about bringing the business community together with the social service industries, because I think that the more collaborative we are, the better and faster and more effective we'll solve some of these problems.
And I think that the housing issue is the big one.
Perfect example.
Is the one where there's a lot of different opinions, a lot of different voices, and there's a concern. If the growth happens faster, if the growth is happening faster than we're able to solve the problem, then
there's going to be winners and losers.
Yes.
So we have to figure out how to deal with that.
And we have to figure out how to do it very, very quickly. Which is solutions fast there, and solutions that are sort of addressing the issues and are aware of all the stuff.
Yeah.
I think we're running out of time.
Absolutely. We got our white card. We can sit here and talk about this.
Yeah, we can talk about this all day.
I wish I could have like a fake glass of whiskey next to my fake fire while we had a fireside chat.
We could actually
have
a real glass of whiskey. Yes.
So there's something coming up. You guys have an event coming up October 2nd.
Well, first, Startup Coffee Meetup tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Here at 942 Olive. Stop by and get some coffee. Final showcase event, Eugene Accelerator cohort number 6, coming up on October 2nd at the Holt Center. Yeah, if you guys have never been to this showcase event, it's one of my favorite things we do in our community. These companies who just went through this intense accelerator program coming out, being able to give their pitches live to the community to sort of understand what's their company, what are they trying to do, and how can we support them as a community. I think it's really cool. Coming out as a community to support them is key. Yeah, absolutely. So October 2nd, doors open at 5 at the Holt Center, right? Yes. Show starts at 5:30. It's a free event. Free event? Great. Yes. Everyone's welcome. Yes. Everyone show up. Good. All right. Thanks, Joe. I really had fun. Did we forget anything? No, we got everything. Awesome. We got everything. This was fun. This was fun. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. If you have questions, comments, please leave them in the comments here. We'll try to go back and answer some of those questions. We're excited to see some of these conversations roll out in the next several months. Thanks, Joe. Thank you. Have a good one.